Hi, Emma. I am really looking forward to this conversation. I'm so appreciative of you being here. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm excited to share, and it's so nice to actually speak to you because we've sort of chatted on Instagram but never actually properly live chatted. So yeah, it's so nice to properly meet you.
Likewise, likewise. And I'm really looking forward to hearing your story as well. Would you be able to start by just telling me a bit about when this all started? When did you develop tinnitus?
Sure. So I developed it, I think it's nearly 13 years ago now. I was at university. So I was 18 years old and had just sort of moved in. I was very homesick, being quite far away from home. And didn't really sort of connect with anyone at the university that I'd moved to until kind of my second week that I was there. And I actually moved flats and made some new friends, which was lovely. And then we kind of started to go out a lot more, which I wanted because, when you move to uni, you want to have that social life and go out a lot and, go to parties and what have you. And yes, I was going out a lot with my new friends. And unfortunately, on one of those occasions, I woke up the next morning and still had the ringing in my ears. So I'd had that pretty much every time I'd been out, basically, since I'd, gone to my first ever nightclub in my hometown. And so I kind of thought it was normal and it always went away, the next morning. But on this particular occasion, it didn't. So that's kind of, yeah, that's kind of what happened. I literally went to bed with it from a night out, woke up, it was still there. Um, and I then went to the doctor on campus. And at first he said, "Oh, maybe you've got an ear infection. Once you have antibiotics, that'll clear it up. And after the antibiotics have worked, the ringing will go." Obviously that didn't happen. And yeah, when I went back, I think it was about a week later and it hadn't gone, he said, "It might actually be permanent." And as we all know, we all get the same answer, there isn't a cure. So I was just kind of left to navigate it really. Um, yeah, at 18.
So young, isn't it? And, a lot of people have that misconception that tinnitus is something that you get when you're older.
Yeah.
How was that trying to navigate that on your own at 18 at university? What did that look like for you then?
It was so difficult. I think because my parents hadn't even, but it's weird, like they obviously had experienced it, but they didn't know it was a thing. So they didn't even know what it was. So obviously the first thing you do is call home, something's going on, what's wrong. They didn't know, they didn't understand. So they couldn't really help either. And I kind of modeled along I don't know, almost just trying to get on with it and just hope that it will go away. So I think I spent about 2 weeks just trying to carry on, going to lectures, carrying on, trying to live away from home. But ultimately I just couldn't cope, basically. I couldn't manage on my own. It was so distressing. I didn't know what was wrong. 5 hours away from home, it just wasn't working. Um, I was just so unhappy. I wasn't eating, wasn't sleeping. All the classic things, that I now know are quite common with people that when they develop it. Yeah, so I just kind of felt quite alone. And then I ended up moving back home to my parents to kind of be looked after and managed by like my family doctor. So yeah.
It's been so hard, starting university, wanting to just explore new environments and new friends and going
Yeah.
out. Something we all expect to be able to do, really. And it sounds like that was kind of cut short for you, or that
Yeah.
experience was cut short for you there.
Yeah.
Gosh, must have been so challenging for
It was
you.
really yeah, it was really scary, and I think as well because it wasn't something I knew about and no one else around me knew about, there literally wasn't anyone I could talk to because even, the doctor was like, "Oh, you just have to learn to live with it." Like, and how? But how do you learn to live with it? You can't just say learn to live with it and then, go away. There's no manual. Or there wasn't at the time. And yeah, I went home and the my family GP, did all the same tests, looked in my ear, sent me for a hearing test. Everything's fine. We can't see anything wrong. You just got to live with it. I did get referred to audiology at the NHS. so just at the hospital. That was the first time I started to receive any kind of like meaningful help. So the audiologist there was actually fantastic. What she gave me were those little, they look like hearing aids, but they generate the sound, and she obviously programmed them to roughly match my tinnitus. They did really help actually. I think it helped more because you have that tangible help. So even though, it's not a cure, it's just you feel like you have a little bit of control, like somebody's helping you rather than just being told, get on with it. So that's the first time I got meaningful help, I would say.
And how long did that take for you to get what was the process? How long did it take for you to get those sound generators?
Think it was a couple of months from memory. I think it was going to GP, not, can't see anything obvious that's wrong, refer to audiology. So I think it was probably a couple of months from me waking up with it to getting that help. Um, Yeah, and from memory, that was kind of all I had actually. I just had the sound generators and they did help actually. I think there's something about having something else to focus on, which yeah, now I've lived it for a long time. I kind of understand that principle, but at the time I didn't. I just did what I was told. But I remember kind of just feeling a little bit more like I had that sense of control, something to focus on. I do very well with I don't know if you call it like projects maybe or goals. Like I work quite well in that. My brain likes that. So I think my brain liked that it had something to achieve almost with that. It was like, okay, have the generators for X amount of time, this is what they're doing, this is why they work. That really helped me. I think it's what anchored me a little bit. Um, and then I was able to go back to the job that I had before I left for uni, which again really helped. So just slowly integrating myself back into life. But yeah, I think the hardest thing is just the alienation. It was just feeling like I was just like, yeah, like an alien. I was like, I'm in the same place where I grew up with all the same people, gone back to the same job, but my whole world is completely different. Like everything's changed and no one understands. That was really hard.
Thank you for sharing that.
No, you're
You
welcome.
know, what you've said there, Emma, is that there was no one that really got it. And it was only until you saw the audiologist was given this device and then also given a bit of structure as well to say, right,
Yeah.
this is how you use it, this is why it works. That kind of helped you, that education piece and having that
Yes.
guidance helped give you that control back a little bit. Um, is there anything else that helped you at that time, or do you think it was just the sound generators?
Um, I think the biggest one was, so there was a couple of things really. So at the same time, when I came home from uni and I started back at the job that I'd left, I actually met my now husband there. So he was about the same age as me, a little bit younger, and so I met him while we were working there. So that kind of helped in a way because it took the focus off of tinnitus and it was like this new person. I think feeling things again, which might sound really strange, but I didn't feel anything for such a long time after I got diagnosed. I just felt numb because I was depressed really. I was completely like lost. Didn't feel anything. And I think when I met him and started to feel things again, it reminded me that like it made me feel like, oh, life's not hopeless. Like, yes, that sound's still here, but my life is still moving, it's still progressing. So I think living life is a really big one. Um, so just those steady things, returning to work, meeting people, seeing my friends again, falling in love, um, really helped. But also, my husband Joe's dad also has tinnitus, and he's the first person I met in real life that had it. Yeah, so that connection to a real person who had had it for years and was still going to live music, had a family, he was just living his life and it didn't bother him. That really like snapped something in my head of like, okay, I can be happy, like I can be normal. That massively helped, I think, as well.
That's incredible. That's
Mm.
incredible. I think sometimes we underestimate the power of seeing somebody else who lives well with tinnitus. Uh,
Oh,
yeah, seeing that
yeah.
they're doing all of these things that we want to do that maybe we're fearful of, and saying, "Well, actually, if they can do it, I can too." Um, But thank you so much for sharing that. And
Oh, you're
it's
welcome.
interesting that you said there, Emma, about getting back out there with friends, meeting your husband, but initially not having those feelings there because of that low mood.
Mm.
How how do you well, firstly, can I ask, how do you navigate sharing with friends or let's say s- a new person that you're speaking to? How do you
Mhm.
navigate telling them about tinnitus? Because a lot of people are afraid to tell people.
That is such a good question, and I completely get that. So I actually feel like I only recently um, have kind of got really comfortable with that, and it's been obviously a long time since since I started having it. Um, so when in the early days, I think honestly didn't. I actually didn't tell that many people. So the only people that I knew when I was sort of younger and first had it was my family. When I met Joe and his family, obviously we talked about it. Couple of my close friends at university knew, and that was actually it. So, and it wasn't because I was scared of telling one. I think it's just that I didn't want to give it any more importance than I already had. So I think I just didn't. Um, which, I mean, in a way, it was good because it wasn't such a feature. Like it wasn't bothering me to an extent where I felt like I had to tell people, which I took as a really good sign. However, there was an element of not wanting to kind of tell people professionally because I was worried about what they would think that meant for my capabilities in terms of, would they think that I wouldn't concentrate as well as somebody else? Would they think that I, wasn't capable of focusing? I don't know. That was maybe my main worry. It's fine. I guess a misconception really, but just that people would, I don't know, think less of me maybe. Just that, yeah, I've got a disadvantage. So I didn't really tell anyone for a long time. So previous employers didn't know, colleagues didn't know. And it's only in the last few years where I've started being a bit more vocal on, social media, working with like the RNID, that I've started opening up about it more. I think partly because the conversation just seems broader. It seems like more people do know about it and they're more aware. But actually, since sharing, I feel like it's been really positive in my personal life. So I've actually had people that I've known a long time tell me they've got it and I didn't know they had it. Um, One girl that I worked with years ago saw my interview on BBC and messaged me, said, "Oh, I've had it since I was 16." And we just sat next to each other for years working, neither of us ever mentioning it to each other. And I just think that's crazy, right? Like, yeah. So yeah, since sharing, and now I think I just tell people really if it comes up. It's not something that I just go, "Hi, Emma, nice to meet you. By the way, I've got tinnitus." But yeah, I'm quite happy to talk about it now, and most people are just interested, to be honest.
You have had those opportunities and now you're finding people that you've known for so long that also have tinnitus, and I think there's something special about seeing somebody who is younger as well, who is comfortable speaking about their experience with it. What's that been like for you, just being on TV, on radio, talking about your tinnitus and raising awareness with our RNID?
Oh, it's been amazing, to be honest. I always say to like people that know me, like, I just want more purpose. Like, I've always felt like it sounds so weird, but I've always felt like there was something that I was here to do. And I never quite knew like what that was or what that looked like. But I genuinely feel like since I've started talking about it and sharing it, that like I just have so much purpose in my life. And I think turning something that was so horrible for me when I was younger, like it was such a like it was the most difficult experience of my life, I think, like the most difficult thing I've been through, the hardest time. And now I've turned it into something that's like so empowering and gives me purpose and lets me help people and meet people. I just think it's been so powerful. And I think for anyone who, who's just got it and feels in the throes of despair, like I was there, I completely understand. But it genuinely has become something positive for me, which I genuinely never thought I would ever say. If you told me that 13 years ago, I would have absolutely not believed you. So I think it just shows there's power in your perspective as well. I think it's just shifted my perspective. Yeah, give me more meaning.
And I think that is really important what you've said there. I talk to a lot of people that are struggling with tinnitus about
Mm.
finding purpose. And for some people, it might not necessarily be in tinnitus or helping others like you've
No,
done. But there's something about, really throwing your attention and into something that means more than just living your day to day life. Uh,
100%.
would you say so? And that's been something that's helped you cope with your tinnitus as well?
100%. And I think that there's a lot of other things in my life as well that I do. So I discovered pole fitness about 4 years ago. And that is just the best. That's again another amazing thing that I've done in the last 4 years, because it's just, again, it's like connection. So I've got these friends now that I see every week. It's moving your body, it's enjoying music and it not being the enemy, because obviously I got tinnitus from loud noise, so it would have been so easy for it to become the enemy. And it's not. I have so much like joy in music and movement, and that's been amazing as well. So just, yeah, finding something that you really love and like pushes you is probably the best thing for it. And I think it also, I remember finding it really hard to do some of the other activities that I used to really love. So I used to like play violin when I was a teenager, love to read. I still read now, but I remember that feeling like that was taken from me when I was first diagnosed, because obviously it's a quiet activity. So I think finding new things as well that you can enjoy to replace the things that maybe you feel you've lost can also be really beneficial. Yeah.
That's such a good point there. Such a good point. I love the fact that you've talked about reframing music, and not seeing it as an enemy, but actually finding a way to bring it back into your life in a positive manner, and coupling that with fitness and moving your body. We know how that can really help change how we feel. Um,
Massively.
and then also just a lot of us, we kind of put all of our joy and our happiness in one pot, but
Yeah.
actually there are other things that we can explore, and maybe developing tinnitus gives us that opportunity to find out what other things
Mm.
can I fall in love with.
Yeah, that's such a nice way of thinking about it as well, actually. I hadn't really thought about it specifically in that way, but yeah, I think any challenges you have in life, tennis is obviously the one that I talk about the most. It is about like it's really cheesy, but like people say rejection is redirection. It's almost like that really difficult thing has happened, but like, where can you redirect that? So, is it talking about it? Is it connecting? Is it finding a new hobby? I never used to like love the outdoors, and I just love it. I love going for walks. I love the bird song, the wind, like the sun. Like I notice things now that I wouldn't have noticed when I was, 16, 17, because I have tinnitus, genuinely. Um, yeah. And everyone has struggles. I think it's reframing that as well. Like, this is one struggle that we have, and it's a really difficult one at times, but everybody goes through something, and it's about how you meet that challenge, and finding people who can help. That's the other thing. I didn't have as much support then that I probably know to look for now. I know where it all is, but I didn't at the time. So yeah.
Thank you again, Emma. Thank you. Interesting that you talk about everybody has their struggles and how tinnitus can be really difficult at times. And I know we've had
Mm,
in the past, and
yeah,
we have fluctuations, don't we, with our tinnitus?
sure.
Tell me, what does tinnitus look like for you now, 13 years on? Are you still hearing
Yeah.
it all the time? Tell me a bit about that.
So, I don't I feel like I don't hear it all the time. I know it's there all the time, but I don't hear it all the time. There are really big chunks of time in my days, weeks now, where I don't. And I feel it got a little bit worse in 2024, I think, which is, I think, when I first found you online, because I had COVID and I got eustachian tube dysfunction, which I still have. um, and that definitely brought my awareness back to it. So I don't know if it made it louder or not, but because I had something else going on in my ears, it just put the tension back there. Because before that, for a good probably a decade, I kind of almost didn't associate it with myself. I don't know if that makes sense, but I didn't think about it. I didn't tell people I had it. I didn't it wasn't a consideration in my life other than I protected my hearing anytime I went out. That was the only time I thought about it. I didn't research it. I didn't look at it. So it really did go from being all consuming to not even a part of my life to being more in it now. So it's, it does move. And I remember that being quite scary in 2024. It threw me back, like to when I first got it. It was like, oh God, I'm back there again. It was real panicky, oh God, like spiral. And then obviously I found your channel. I actually went and saw she's actually a tinnitus therapist. So she specifically counselled people with tinnitus. I can't remember her name. I'll maybe find a link if I can, but she was, and I think maybe an Olympic or a championship swimmer, and she developed Meniere's disease and retrained and got tinnitus and hearing loss, and she retrained as a therapist. So I actually had a session with her in 2024. So it's just about reaching out to people. So that spike came and I just knew I need to get on top of this right now because I'll spiral. So that's what I did. And now it feels like it's calmed back down again. So I don't notice it again as much. So yeah.
Well, do you know, thank you so much for sharing that experience, because gosh, a lot of people talk about once you do kind of habituate, you get to this
Mm.
point where it's not even part of your life, it's not even a
Yeah.
consideration for you. And then this fluctuation or this spike happens for no fault of your own at all. Similar, I think you're aware, I also got it after developing COVID.
Yes. Yeah.
And I really hope I don't go back to how I was before. And I always say to people, with these spikes, you can never go back to what it was like at the beginning, because
No.
you can't forget what you know. You know that you've had that decade where my brain filters this out, you
Yep,
know.
and it
And
really did. I slept with earplugs, like I slept with foam earplugs to block out like external noises. Like that's how comfortable I became with it.
wow.
Um, yeah, and that when I tell people that, they're like, "What?" I just accepted it to be so much to be a part of my world, like my inner world, that it wasn't abnormal to me. It was just like, God, my husband's snoring. That's keeping me awake. Earplugs in, peace. And I could hear my tinnitus the whole entire time, but it just was more peaceful than like a dog barking. Do you know what I mean? It was like,
Absolutely.
and I still use them sometimes now, like if I'm in a hotel or something. Yeah. So it's just about taking the fear out of it. And that's not to say I don't get scared sometimes, like I did in 2024, because suddenly I could hear it over the telly, for example. But it did die down. I got the help I needed. I had the therapy, went, to a specialist, got them just to check, nothing abnormal's happened, it all looks the same. Had a hearing test, all the same, like reassured myself. And I just got back on it. I just got back onto everyday life, pole, work. Yeah.
Wow.
I know I make it sound really easy. I also do fully, like I was in the depths of despair. Like I've been all the way down. So, but I say it in a hopeful way because I also have been here, and I just don't want people to forget that you could experience both. Yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. And when you're in the depths of it, it feels incomprehensible to think that you can be up there again.
100%.
So it's important that
Yeah.
we lean on the hope of people like yourself that have, experienced that, and trust
Mm.
that even if I don't know how I'll get there, I can get there too. But I need to go back to something, because I think there might be some people that don't understand the importance of what you said about putting earplugs in. When you put earplugs in, it blocks out external sounds. So you hear internal sounds louder, whether that's your heartbeat, whether that's yourself chewing, and that's called the acoustic effect. So a lot of people struggle with earplugs when they first get tinnitus because it makes their tinnitus feel louder. They perceive it more. So the
Mm.
fact that you're saying, "I'd rather hear my internal sound than hear external sounds," shows how comfortable you got with your tinnitus.
Yep, I know. I don't know. It's just maybe it's a bit brain training. I'm not exactly sure, but I started actually. So I know I talked about dropping out of uni. I actually went back to uni a year later, a different uni, um, and stayed. And I got 2 degrees. I got my master's and my degree, and all with tinnitus. So I was studying, I was in quiet lecture halls, I was in libraries, and I got my degrees. But I used when I was in halls, there was a like the people next door were really loud. They used to play like bass until 3 a.m. So that's when I started using earplugs. And I think because I just used them for so long, yeah, my brain just got used to the tinnitus. Probably really helped actually. It probably was a really big part of my habituation because every night I would relax and go to sleep to the sound of it. Um, and I have heard of people saying that they like the sound of the tinnitus. So it just shows that it's, it's not tinnitus itself that can be the problem. It's like how everybody reacts to it, which is blows my mind every time.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you said it spot on. You said it was about the fear and dispelling that fear. And some of
Mm,
the things that you did in 2024 was speaking to a tinnitus therapist, you know, going to see the ENT, getting a hearing test just to get that reassurance. And that was
mhm,
what did to kind of kick you back into habituating again. Um, is there anything that you'd maybe say to somebody who doesn't know anyone that has it, has been to their GP, been to doctors, and has been told that there isn't anything that can be done, what would you advise them?
I think I would advise them if they have social media to utilize that because there are people out there like I'm always very open and happy if people DM me to have a chat. There's people like Karis who is really vocal on social media, obviously finding a specialist like yourself. So I think rather than just going to a general ENT, I think if possible, go to somebody who mentions being a tinnitus specialist because then you're going to get that level of understanding. I think there are also quite a lot of support groups that you can find. I would massively, if you don't have access to anything else, I would try and find a tinnitus support group because I do think there's a lot of power in people. And also reading as well. So I found a lot of comfort in certain books that talk about. So Gladys, I know your book's really good because you've got it too. It's like when I read it, I was like, I know that this person actually gets it rather than it being like removed, like, something's very scientific. Um, so I found reading really comforting as well, just reading people's experiences. Yeah, I think that's my best advice.
It's brilliant advice. So you've talked about social media accounts of people who promote tinnitus,
Yeah,
and when they promote tinnitus, encourage you to, well, they might give you some helpful strategies. They talk about life beyond tinnitus as well, give you that
yeah,
speaking to specialists or healthcare professionals who say that they're tinnitus specialists so that they have that level of understanding rather than going to somebody more general. That can be really, really useful too. Is there
sure.
anything you would advise that they don't do in that early stages or anything that maybe that you did that you think, oh gosh, right, if I knew what I know now, definitely doing that?
So I would very much stay away from places like Reddit, which you probably hear all the time, Gladys. So I would stay away from forums because I never found a forum that was positive or helpful, even if they claim to be. So there's a couple that is specifically called like I think it's more called like Tinnitus Talk or something. The only people that speak on those forums are the ones that are really deep in it, very distressed. And I went on a lot of them when I first got it, and it just made me so much worse. It just made me think, I've got no life. My life's done. Like, I'm just going to be like these people on the internet. And that couldn't be further from the truth. So don't try not to Google things, try not to go on forums. Um, and also don't isolate yourself because that was probably the worst thing I did was just completely isolating myself, thinking, I don't know what I was thinking. I was just very scared, very distressed, basically. So just if you can be brave, just reach out to somebody you trust. I think just talk. Yeah.
No, Emma, that's so helpful to hear because there's a difference, isn't there, between support groups and, like you say, support groups like ones that are moderated, whether that's like Tinnitus UK, for example, um, or there is this the forums, which are so easily accessible, 2 a.m. in the middle of the night. No,
Yeah, that was me.
you feel like no one's awake. It's just you in the world that's awake. You're hearing this noise in your head and you think, right, let me go and search this. But actually, you're so right. People that are living their lives with tinnitus, which we know are the majority of people with tinnitus, they're not in those forums. You
No.
know, they're not in the forums. There's other people that are also desperate for that help in there, and it's hard to see past that, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think because the words of others are so powerful. So if you're hearing the right words from others, they can be incredibly beneficial. But if you're hearing the wrong ones, it can be incredibly damaging. There's kind of no middle ground, I find. So, and also I would say anything you read, if you do end up on a forum, something I wish I'd done is I wish I'd then taken that for like that information to somebody who could have helped, because I think even today, sometimes I still, when I'm, having a down moment or have a spike, I'll sometimes get those in my head from back in the day. I'll get those really like scary thoughts. Um, so I think taking those thoughts when you find them to somebody who can kind of almost give you the truth can also be really helpful. I think that's quite a good thing to do maybe as well.
Brilliant piece of advice there because we don't know what we don't know. And if you've read something and it's there in your mind, unless you've spoken to somebody about that, you've just got that message in your mind that will pop up.
Exactly.
But you could have a
Yeah.
conversation with somebody who understands tinnitus, whether that's somebody that's living with it or a healthcare professional, and they go, "Well, that's not true." You know, the one I think about a lot is when people think that they'll get dementia from tinnitus, and it's in their
That
mind and it's in their
scared
mind.
me. Yeah. That was a big one, and another one about I think someone put something about, "Oh, it definitely gets worse." Like, it always gets worse, and I thought, "Oh my god," and that terrified me when I first read it, and then obviously I educated myself and realized that's not actually true. That's yeah, it's not guaranteed. So, yeah, I think if you see something like that, to go and get the help instead of letting it just fester almost in the back of your head. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, thank you for that, Emma. Can I ask you? You talked about spikes, and we've spoken about it a little bit, but is there anything that you do during a spike that helps you?
Mhm. Uh, Going for a walk, always helps because I think fresh air, movement. I know it's not the same for everybody, but I get a lot of quiet when I walk. So my tinnitus is quite well masked by just outside noise. So wind in the leaves that really well masks mine. So for me, it just reminds me that even if my tinnitus is loud, there is somewhere I can go for calm, because that just takes the panic out. It's like, it's okay if it's bad because I know that if I go for a walk, it's going to give me a minute of reprieve. So I think finding whatever works for you that is a reprieve. So whether that's like, I watch a lot of ASMR videos, so really calming on my brain. If that's going for a walk by the sea, if it's having a bath, whatever that thing is that gives you reprieve, just lean on that. I think that's my best tip in a spike. So I always go for a walk and I drink a lot of water. I don't know why, but it helps me. Yeah, when I get really hydrated, for some reason, it tends to like calm it down. Is there anything else that I do? I also just tell my husband, and that usually gets out of my head. I'll just say, "Oh, do you know what? My tinnitus is really driving me nuts today," and then it's almost like it breaks the spell. It's like I've got it off my chest. It helps me move on with the day. That's really good as well. So yeah, they're the kind of things that I do.
Keeping it to
Mm.
yourself and just letting it fester doesn't help. Being dehydrated can not help as well. That's why the water works,
Okay, that makes sense. I never really knew. I just do it.
which is brilliant. And, some people it's just, okay, there's something that I can go and do that's going to help me
It
and help
might be that, yeah. Just it's like just that little have a refresh, like fresh air, fresh water. It's like it just yeah, it
me.
just makes me feel better.
Well, thank you for sharing that. So I always encourage people to have that bit of a toolbox. What are things that you can do? If it's helped you before, keep it in your toolbox. And
Mm,
it might not help every single time. It doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means that maybe there's something else that might work that time for you.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's true. And I find new things all the time, like one week, I don't know, like wave noises really work for me, and then I'll try them again a week later and go, oh no, that's not masking them at all. That's making it louder. And so, it's one of those things you're always learning, aren't you? It's like, yeah, like you said, it's good to just have lots of different things in your toolkit, and you can just dip in and out and find what works that day, that week. Yeah. I always try and speak about hearing protection just because I feel like it's quite a big topic at the moment. That's like the thing that I kind of speak the most about to people, because I see a lot of people talking about how they're frightened to go to loud events, which I completely get because my tinnitus started after a nightclub. So I completely understand not ever wanting to go in a nightclub again. I did, but I always wear hearing protection. And I just always like to point out that's really important because even though I've had it for a long time, I'm not of the opinion that, I've got tinnitus, so I might as well not wear earplugs. I've already done the damage. I think I do hear that a lot. And tinnitus, because I don't have hearing loss with my tinnitus, which again, I found quite puzzling at times because I was always early days taught hearing loss is tinnitus. So I was like, well, I don't have hearing loss, so why have I got tinnitus? Obviously, we know they're not always related, but just because I have tinnitus doesn't mean I can't further damage my hearing. So I always wear earplugs. And yeah, I just always like to say I think that's still so important. And also, it means you can go and enjoy music and nightclubs and concerts and all those things just safely. So yeah.
And so when you say you always wear earplugs, is it when you go to sort of clubs or bars or
Events. Yeah,
events?
loud of anywhere there's loud music, really. I don't tend to be environments where there's other loud noise, but obviously for people who work in construction, things like that, then obviously that's really important as well. But yeah, I mean, I take them everywhere with me. I have them in my bag at all times. So if I'm on the underground, that's another one. I travel to London for work, and the underground's so loud. So I always have them ready for the underground. It's awful. I didn't realize it's so screechy and high pitched. So yeah, I just always have it with me in case I need it. So yeah.
Brilliant. So thank you for that advice. So get a pair of earplugs. You get used to having them
Mm,
in. And there's so many great earplugs that have filters now that when you're speaking to someone, you can still hear what they're saying, but it just takes away that harmful sort of screechy, sharp noises. And the more you use it,
yeah.
the more you get used to it. But it's really important, like you say, only in really
Yeah.
loud events. You don't want to just use it walking down the street or if you're having a
No.
conversation in a coffee shop or anything like that
Mm,
necessarily. But
exactly that. Yeah. I just only when I know it's going to be actual harmful levels of loud noise, I'll wear them. But the rest of the time, I'm just living my life.
incredible. Emma, you've done incredibly because you got your degrees, you didn't let it stop you. You got married, which, I get questions from young people all the time. How will I get married? How will I have kids? How will I, so many questions.
Yeah.
How will I get to university? How will I make new friends? How am I going to get a job? And you're such an inspiration. The fact
Oh,
that
thank
you've
you.
done all of that and then you're on TV and you're on radio and you're just incredible. So thank you so
Thank
much for what you've
you.
done for the community and what you continue to
Oh,
do. I really
thank
appreciate
you,
it.
Gladys. Thank you. I just want to say, for anyone that's asking about things like that, I promise you, I did not think about my tinnitus once on my wedding day. The whole day, I didn't think about it for a second. And I got married in a church, so it was pretty quiet at times. So, y- yeah, anyone that thinks tinnitus is going to definitely ruin everything, I promise you, it will not. I promise you, it won't.
That's my thumbnail. My thumbnail. No, I love that. I love that. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
Really appreciate this, and I know it will
You're
help
welcome.
people.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm so glad.
yeah, no, and I'm sure we'll speak soon.
I hope so. That'd be lovely. Thanks, Gladys.
And,